You know, all these goings on these days about this new morality and all that kind of stuff reminds me of one time when I was a young fellow back home on one of the islands in Placentia Bay. About one time when this pretty young school teacher come to our place. Of course now, every young fellow there wanted to get out with her, but I made up my mind that I was going to have the first smack at her. Well, it happened that old Sam Smith over across the harbour was having a dance in his fish store that very night. And the new school marm happened to be staying down to me Aunt Jessie's. So right after supper, I gets myself all slicked up, put a couple of dabs of screech behind me ears, and shoved a few nails in me pocket because you had to have something to jingle. It makes a good impression, you know. And off I goes, sir, as large as life down to me Aunt Jessie's. Well, by the time I got down there, I wasn't feeling quite so bold. But after a spell, I got up nerve enough to ask her, and by and by she said yes, she'd come. And by the time she was ready, it was darn well time for us to shove off. So down we goes to the beach, sir, and I shoves off me dory. Well, my son, I can tell you, I was some proud. Here I was, just imagine it now, rowing across the harbour with the new school marm sitting in the aft of me dory. And she with her pretty red dress and her new rubber boots on. Well, we tied up the dory at Sam Smith's wharf, and I waited for the new school marm to climb up over the rails first. Of course now, I looked the other way when she was climbing up because she was a school teacher and I had to mind me manners. Anyhow, by the time we got up there, the dance was in full swing. But we weren't up there very long before we were kicking up our heels with the best of them. And by, the new school teacher looks at me. "Hiram," says she. "Yes, ma'am," says I. I was scared. "Let's go outdoors," says she. But I notices that she's eyeing the fellows and the girls was going outdoors in the dark. "Wonderful warm," says she. "Yes, ma'am," says I. And she cuddles up awful close when we gets outdoors in the dark. You know, 'twas awful hot in that store, but it could get awful hot out back of that store, too. Anyhow, about a couple hours after that, the new school marm thought it was time for us to be getting off home. So down we goes to the wharf, boys, and I unties me dory. "Hiram," says she. "Yes, ma'am," says I. Let me help you row." So I shoves over, boys, and the new school marm takes the other oar. But you know, I never did find out if that school marm ever knowed how to row or not, because the first thing I knew, we was high and dry on the beach over there by Hayes's Meadow. Well, sir, I jumps out to push off the dory, but the new school marm lays her hand on me knee. "Lovely night," says she. "Yes, ma'am," says I. "I wonder if the grass is wet," says she. "See, yarn now," says I. "I believe this new school marm was trying to tell me something, but she was the school teacher, and I had to mind me manners." Anyhow, we went ashore, and we walked around for a bit, and we talked, and we sat down, and this time was starting to come on daylight. And by the flies was as thick as around a lassie cake. And by, one great big fly comes and pitches on her leg. "Hiram," says she. "Yes, ma'am," says I. I was still scared. "Wouldn't you like to be that fly?" she says. "Gar now," says I. "I believe the new school marm is trying to tell me something. And school teacher or not, this is not the time for manners." So 'twas about a fortnight or so after that. I was lying in my bed one night, kind of thinking over in my mind some of the things I'd heard the people talking about. Seemed like this new school teacher was awful strict with some of the youngsters up to school. Like she sent one young feller home for 3 days because he seen her ankle. And she sent another young whippersnapper home for a week. He seen her knee. And so, as I rolls over in my bed to go to sleep, I says to myself, one thing for sure, Iron Boy, you'll never have to go to school again.